psychoactive. They say it's a gateway. That's what they call it, a gateway drug. Now, that's to imply that it's a gateway, you understand, to higher, harder drugs, or like cocaine, or what was it, heroin, or opium, or something like that. That's what's implied by it. But now we know that words, especially coming from the Hebraic and the Ethiopic and the Amharic, that words are often in a dual sense. You understand? Double, entendres and double meanings. You understand? Have dualities of meanings. Now these dualities, you understand, like dialectics, you have thesis, antithesis, and you have synthesis. You understand? But what they've given you is the antithesis. You understand? And a little bit of a thesis. What we're seeking now is the synthesis. Now let's move forward to cannabis, Kanehbosem, and choice with regard to union or oneness, ahadunet, or hahad, or tawahido, with the universal mind, or what one would call the God mind, or the Christ mind. Kanehbosem, it allows an individual's mind to get a glimpse of the universal mind, or God's mind. In this sense, the consumption of Kanehbosem, it carries with it the inherent notion of a major choice, exactly like in the MatriX movies and the basic MatriX allegory. In a sense, people who have chosen to consume Kanehbosem have exercised their freedom of choice by making this choice in order to experience the truth. Similar, what's similar to this is how Neo chose the red pill. So for them, it's pretty much over. Once you choose that red pill, it's pretty much over. Like I said, the damage, so to speak, you understand, has been done. Like in the Matrix, we are here to understand why we made this choice. This is what we're really seeking. Why did we make this choice? You understand? Why did you make that choice? What is the reason? Now, while intoxicated, several notions which are otherwise inert or difficult to understand and comprehend, guess what? They become highly clarified. In fact, the clarification of such notions many times becomes so intense that one would tend to classify Kanehbosem as a revelatory and a sacred plant, mainly because, this is the reason why they would qualify it, mainly because of its ability to expand the horizon, or the heru zone, the horizon of the mind. Now remember, horizontal and vertical is two different directions. You got to get this straight. Now the effect of intoxication are reported to be subjective. In other words, the only person who knows how intoxicated they are is the person who's intoxicated. You may see somebody intoxicated and say, man, that person's really intoxicated, but you really don't really know. You understand? Only the one who has experienced the effects of the intoxication, you understand, can really be subjective about it and know. But whatever the case may be, Kanehbosem seems to cause the mind to expand until it reaches God. You understand? Until it reaches God. Remember, we use this loosely. You understand? Now, this subjective feeling of, quote, reaching God, end quote, can be found exactly in the serpents, the Ibabs, quote, in passage of Genesis chapter 3, verse 4, where the Ibab said, you will not surely die. The serpent said to the woman, for God, Elohim, or gods, know that when you eat of it, your eyes will be open and you will be like Elohim, God, or gods, literally, knowing good and evil. Now, under intoxication, what happens under intoxication? Well, the ego, which is the I, the ego, the Anoki, you understand? Or should we call it the seat of consciousness? It wants to experience what it is like to, quote, be God, to be. The emphasis is on to be, to become, to be. The Kheper phase of it. Now, this is, of course, a highly dangerous event. It resembles many times a runaway train. The self, while intoxicated, it gets drunk with the idea of godhood. It gets drunk with the idea of divinity, and it wants to linger in it as long as possible. Knowing good and evil to a certain extent becomes true under the influence of Kanehbosem. Plainly put, the free associations which take place in one's mind while, quote, intoxicated, end quote, it bear extreme resemblance to one suddenly having a deep revelatory experience about the truth. It is exactly this truth which is spoken of in John, the Wengel, or the Gospel of Qudus Yohannes, chapter 8, verse 32. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.